For more on the sport of rugby across the African continent, I had the pleasure to speak earlier on with Herbert Mensah, who is the newly elected president of Rugby Afrique. He spoke to us from Accra, Ghana, and I began by asking him how soon could we expect the launch of the ambitious program to revolutionize rugby in Africa, as promised before his election as continental president.
What we're trying to do first and foremost is look at the internal structures of Rugby Africa. We will go to our first EXCO meeting in the end of after Easter. And at that point in time, we will then put together the fresh committees, those who are involved in the committees, and then start outlining what the vision is for them. We're looking for very strong committees. We're looking for people who are committed on those committees to pushing the agenda and to working forward. So it'll start from that point.
And Mr. President, maybe kindly share some highlights of how you then plan to commercialize the sport of rugby here in Africa.
Well, my mantra has been, not only during this period, but over the last 20 years, has been that sport is big business. For those of whom have known a little bit about me over the last 20 years, we changed and revolutionized football in Ghana over the last 20-odd something years with the great famous Kumasi Asante Kotoko, taking the position that sport in fact is big business. And I think that with rugby we have to do the same. It starts with a change in mindset internally within Rugby Africa, a change in mindset in terms of the people who are committed to working with me with this new vision, change in mindset in terms of our relationships between ourselves, our governing body, which is World Rugby, as well as all those associated with rugby. That's FFR, RFU, the different groups, and even the larger global bodies as well. I talk about the EU and the rest, because it is playing rugby, it is training, it is so many things that come in and get involved with the actual business of rugby. The change in mindset for those who have the money, understanding that capital has a choice. It really does. And we've seen it right across the globe, that capital chooses to go to places rather than come to Africa. We have to change that mindset into letting people understand that actually the market is here, the future is Africa, and the investment should be here rather than anywhere else. So once we set up the structures internally within Rugby Africa, the committees get underway, then we must get into a position whereby this philosophy, it becomes part and part of those who will be running the program going forward.
Do outline your plans perhaps to develop both youth and women's rugby in both the 15s and 7s across the continent here.
We need to look at a feeder system, so it's not just the same countries who are playing in the Barthez Trophy, for example, and whether it is that we develop enough so that at a lower category we bring in other competitions to make it work. On the women, I feel particularly passionate about it. I was raised by an extraordinary mother, and I have great sensitivities for womanhood. I really think that there's massive potential there. And we have to look at the competition structure, but we have to look internally. It is big for me. I really believe that if the investments go in right and the approach is taken properly, that we can get women that can break into that top tier, maybe not tackle the Ferns and the top nations at this point in time, but you set the ball rolling in a certain direction in terms of how we train, the nutrition, the fitness, the core strength building of an athlete in terms of a global rugby player today, and we'll eventually see the results.